This video is over lessons 61 through 63. Lesson 61, adding three or more fractions. Lesson 62, writing mixed numbers as improper fractions. And Lesson 63, subtracting mixed numbers with regrouping. Take a moment to copy these titles down into your notes. When you're done, press play. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Adding three or more fractions is just like adding two fractions. You have to find a common denominator. So in a problem like this, since they are all fifths, I'm able to just go ahead and add. So, one piece plus another piece plus another piece gives me a total of 3 pieces. This piece was a fifth, this piece was a fifth, that piece was a fifth. So all three together are still fifths. Now, not all problems are going to be this simple. When we don't have a common denominator, we're going to want to tackle these problems vertically. So let's try this. One half plus 1/4 plus 1/8. Now, I want to change these by multiplying each of them by a form of 1, which I'm going to make a fraction for that, so that they end up with a common denominator. Look carefully at your fractions. To find a common denominator, I could just take each of these denominators and multiply them together. So 2 times 4 is 8, and then times 8 is 64. So yeah, 64 could be a common denominator, but I can find something a lot smaller. Specifically, 2 and 4 can both be turned into 8s. So I can get a common denominator of 8, which will make things a lot easier in the end. So 2 times 4 gives me 8, so this must be 4 over 4. And 4 times 2 is 8, so this must be 2 over 2. And then finally, well, this is already set, so really 8 times 1. And this form of 1 technically is optional. I could leave off the multiplication and the fraction and just put an equal sign and bring the fraction over. Alright, let's finish the multiplication now. Up top, 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. And 1 times 1 is 1. And now we're ready to add. 4 plus 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And since these are eighths, and these are eighths, and these are eighths, all together they're still eighths. Let's look at one more example. Let's do 3/4 plus 5/6 plus 1/8. Now this time I can't turn them all into eighths like I did over here. I can't turn them all into sixths. I can't turn them all into fourths. So to find a common denominator, I could just take each of these and multiply them together. So 4 times 6 is 24, times 8, it's going to be much larger than I'd rather deal with. So when we run into a situation like this, what I suggest you do is over to the side somewhere, out of the way, go ahead and write down your 3 or 4 or 5 denominators, however many there are, and just think through what would it take to just change 2 of them. So if I had a denominator of 4 and 6 and that was it, what could I change both of these into? Well, I could change 4 into an 8, but I can't change a 6 into an 8. I could change 4 into a 12, and I can also turn 6 into a 12. So 4 times 3 and 6 times 2. So both of these can turn into 12. Now think through 12 and 8. So obviously I can turn 12 into, well, itself, just leave it alone, but you can't turn an 8 into a 12 using multiplication. Now I could turn 12 into 24 by multiplying it by 2, and I can also turn 8 into 24 by multiplying it by 3. So 24 is going to be a common denominator that'll be a whole lot smaller than just taking my 3 denominators and multiplying them together. So that's what I'm going to go with here. So I'm going to multiply each of these fractions by a form of 1 so that I get the common denominator 24. Up here, 4 times 6 is 24, so this is 6 over 6. Let's go ahead and finish the multiplication. 3 times 6 is 18. And then 6 times 4 is 24. So this is 4 over 4. And we finish that, 5 times 4 is 20. And then finally, 8 times 3 is 24. So this is 3 over 3, and 1 times 3 is 3. Add this up, 18 and 20 makes 38, plus 3 makes 41. And there's still 20/4. Don't forget to see if you can simplify your fractions. So 41 being larger than 24 means I can pull a group of 24 out of there to make one whole. And if I subtract and figure out how much is left over, so after I pull that 24 out to make a whole, I'm going to have 17 left over. Double check. Can I simplify this more? Well, 17 is smaller than 24, so that's all set. And you can't reduce it. Therefore, my answer is 1 and 17/24. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Mixed numbers are kind of special mathematically because they're the only place in mathematics where we find implied addition. So for example, I'm going to use a little bit of color here. Let's go with 3 and 4/5. So 3 and 4/5 means 3 plus 4/5. So if I want to change this into just a single fraction, we need to think about how do we add fractions. Well, we add fractions by getting a common denominator and then adding the numerators. And so what I need here is I need to change 3 into a fraction where 5 is the denominator. So basically what I'm asking is, what divided by 5 is 3? Well, that would be 15. So now I'm ready to add. 15 plus 4 gives me 19 and their fifths. So 3 and 4/5 is 19/5. So in general, it follows this formula. We have a whole number, a numerator, and a denominator in my mixed number. And so what we're going to do is the denominator is still going to be the denominator, but the numerator of my improper fraction is going to come from these things. Well, 15 was my whole number times my denominator. so that way when I do this division, it comes back as 3. So I have the whole number times the denominator. So I'm going to put whole number times denominator, and then we added on the numerator. So plus the numerator. So let's try this out one more time. Let's do 1 and 4/7. And this time we're going to use the formula. So if I use the formula, my denominator is still going to be 7, and up top it's going to be the whole number times the denominator. So the whole number here is 1 times the denominator is 7 plus, it says plus there, whatever the numerator was. Well, the numerator was 4. Multiply that together and then add. 1 times 7 is 7, plus 4 is 11. So 1 and 4/7 is 11/7. Let's do one more example. 2 and 3/8. If it helps, you can kind of imagine a U in this problem. And so as I work it out, I know the denominator is going to stay the denominator, but it can get confusing what goes on top and in what order. Well, I know I'm going to multiply two things and I'm going to add the third thing, but which two do I multiply and which one do I add? Well, if you follow the U, it'll take you right across. 2 times the 8 plus the 3. So 2 times the 8 plus the 3. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 3 is 19. So 2 and 3/8 is 19/8. And let's try one more. Let's try 5 and 7/9. So again, if we kind of imagine a U here, well, 9 is still my denominator. Up top, it's going to be 5 times 9 plus the 7. So 5 times 9 plus the 7. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 7 is 52. So 5 and 7/9 is 52/9. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Now we're going to review subtracting mixed numbers, although we're going to take it to a higher level here today. So let's try 5 and 2/5, and we're going to subtract from that 3 and let's go 6/7. Well, we should know that in order to subtract fractions, we have to have a common denominator. So the very first thing I'm going to need to do is multiply both of these by a form of 1, which will be a fraction, to get a common denominator. Now, in both of these, the whole number is going to tag along. So let's just go ahead and put those over there. And now we need to think, okay, 5 can turn into 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and on and on and on. 7 can turn into a 14, a 21, a 28, a 35. Right there, they can both turn into a 35. So my common denominator is going to be 35. So up top here, 5 times 7 is 35, so this will be 7/7. Let's finish the multiplication. So 2 times 7 is 14. And down here, 7 times 5 is 35, so this will be 5/5. Finish the multiplication. 6 times 5 is 30. And now we're ready to subtract. So we start with the small stuff and we'll work our way over to the bigger stuff. So we're going to subtract the fractions first. So if we have 14/35 minus 30/35, well, maybe we're not quite ready to do this problem. Because the problem we face here is if you have 14, how do you take away 30? So obviously we can't do this. Well, in any other subtraction, if we ran into a problem like this, we would just borrow, which is the same thing that we're going to do here. So I'm going to borrow from the whole number. I'm going to take 1 away. And that's important that we understand we're taking 1 away. Let's go ahead and write that over here in red. So I'm taking 1 away. I need to understand, what is that worth? I'm going to be taking that 1 and adding it to my fraction. Well, this fraction, each piece is a 35th. So what we need to think through is 1 is how many 35ths? Well, that should be pretty easy. It's 35 35ths. So we are adding on 35 35ths to this 14 35ths. So when I do that, I'm going to slash out the 14 there, and 14 plus this extra 35, well, 4, 5 makes 9, 1 and 3 makes 4, so therefore it becomes 49 35ths. So the 14 that was there originally, plus the 1, which is really 35 35ths, became 49 35ths. Now we're ready to subtract. 49 minus 30 is 19, and these are still 35ths. And now we subtract the whole numbers. 4 minus 3 is 1. Check to see if we can reduce our fraction. Well, we can't. For one thing, if we remember that 19 is a prime number, that means it can only be reduced by itself, and 19 does not go into 35. Therefore, my answer is 1 and 19 35ths. Let's try one more example, just a little bit faster this time. So let's say we have 3 and 1/3, and we subtract 2 and a half. First of all, I need to change these to a common denominator. So both of these will be times by some form of 1. So the whole numbers will just carry over. And so now a 3 and a 2, well, 3 can turn into itself 3, or it can turn into 6, which, wait, 2 can also turn into a 6. So therefore my common denominator is 6. Well, 3 times 2 is 6, so this is 2 over 2. And 1 times 2 is 2. On the bottom there, 2 times 3 is 6, so this is 3 over 3. And 1 times 3 is 3. And now we subtract. Well, 2 6 minus 3 6 we can't do, so we need to borrow from my whole number, making it 2. 1 whole that was taken away here is going to be worth how many sixths? Well, 6 sixths. I already have 2. I'm getting 6 more, so it's becoming an 8. 8 minus 3 is 5, and these are 6. And 2 minus 2 is 0. I'm not even going to bother writing the 0. And my answer is just 5/6. This video ends in 3, 2, 1.